The F-117 Nighthawk looks like someone tried to fold a paper airplane while having an argument with geometry. During the opening hours of Desert Storm, 36 of these stealth fighters, representing less than 2.5% of coalition aircraft, attacked 31% of the targets on day one. That's not air superiority, that's air embarrassment. The F-117 story begins in the 1970s when the Soviet Union was getting uncomfortably good at shooting down American aircraft. The Pentagon, in a rare moment of forward thinking, decided that maybe it would be better if enemy radar couldn't see our planes in the first place. Revolutionary concept, really. Enter Lockheed's Skunk Works, the division that had already proven they could make aircraft that looked like they were designed by aliens. The U-2 and SR-71 Blackbird. This time, they weren't just aiming for fast or high flying. They wanted invisible. The key to stealth wasn't exotic materials or science fiction technology. It was geometry. Really, really angry geometry inspired by a 1962 Soviet research paper that the CIA found in an academic journal. The Soviets had essentially published the mathematical theory for stealth technology and then completely ignored it. Americans read it, said, "Hold our light beer," and built the most advanced stealth fighter of the century. Every surface on the F-117 was angled to deflect radar waves away from the transmitter. No curves, no smooth surfaces, just a collection of flat panels that made the aircraft look like it had been assembled by someone who'd never seen an airplane but had a vague understanding of origami. Development took place at Area 51, which was already America's premier, definitely not aliens facility. Picture this. It's 1982, you're driving through the Nevada desert, and suddenly you see what appears to be a flying geometric nightmare silently gliding overhead. Most people went with aliens. The situation wasn't helped by the fact that when the F-117 crashed during testing, which it did twice fatally, the military's response was essentially, "Nothing to see here. Definitely wasn't a super secret stealth fighter, probably just weather." When crashes occurred, all F-117 debris was replaced with remains from an F-101A Voodoo crash stored at Area 51. Because nothing says this isn't suspicious like swapping wreckage. Now, let's talk about what made the F-117 fly, because by all rights, it shouldn't have. The aircraft was about as aerodynamically stable as a brick with wings. Actually, that's unfair to bricks, at least they're predictable. The F-117 was so unstable that it required computer corrections 400 times per second just to fly straight. That's 1,600 flight corrections between each human blink. The angular surfaces that scattered radar also scattered airflow in ways that made aeronautical engineers weep. This is where computers saved the day. The F-117 was one of the first aircraft that was literally unflyable without computer assistance. Like riding a mechanical bull if the bull was invisible to radar and cost $45 million. The engines were borrowed from the F-18 Hornet, but extensively modified to reduce their heat signature. The exhaust was mixed with cool air and expelled through slots rather than traditional nozzles. Even the engine intakes were covered with screens to prevent radar from bouncing around inside. The F-117 wasn't built to dogfight. It had no air-to-air missiles, no gun, and all the maneuverability of a flying school bus. What it had was the ability to penetrate enemy airspace undetected and deliver surgical strikes with unprecedented precision. The aircraft's primary weapon was the GBU-27 Pavaway 3 laser-guided bomb, a 2,000-pound bunker buster specifically redesigned to fit the F-117's cramped internal bomb bay. Gulf War pilots nicknamed it the Hammer for its devastating destructive power. The GBU-27 used a BLU-109 penetrating warhead that could punch through hardened concrete before exploding inside. Perfect for command bunkers and ammunition depots. For even tougher targets, the F-117 could carry the massive 5,000-pound GBU-28 deep throat penetrator. Though this beast was so large it required external mounting, compromising stealth. The internal bomb bay could carry exactly 2 weapons, because stealth apparently comes with a very limited carry-on allowance. The targeting system was equally impressive. Pilots used forward-looking infrared, FLIR, and a laser designator to mark targets with precision that conventional aircraft could only dream of. The F-117 could drop a bomb from 15,000 feet and hit a target the size of a garage door. Meanwhile, the average person misses the trash can when throwing away paper from 3 feet away. To understand how revolutionary the F-117 was, compare it to America's other bombers. The B-52 Stratofortress, that Cold War workhorse, shows up on radar like a flying apartment building. Its massive 185-foot wingspan and 8 engines make it about as stealthy as a marching band. But what it lacks in subtlety, it makes up in payload. 70,000 pounds of ordnance compared to the F-117's measly 5,000. The B-1 Lancer was designed for speed, not stealth. It can dash at Mach 1.25 at low altitude, using terrain masking and electronic jamming to survive. But even with its reduced radar signature, the B-1 is still detectable. Just hopes to be too fast to catch. The B-2 Spirit, the F-117's bigger, more expensive cousin, took stealth to the next level. Its flying wing design and advanced materials give it a radar signature smaller than a bird, while carrying 40,000 pounds of weapons. But at $2.1 billion per aircraft, it cost more than most countries' entire defense budgets. The F-117 occupied the sweet spot, cheap enough to build in useful numbers, stealthy enough to penetrate the world's most sophisticated air defenses, and precise enough to take out high-value targets with surgical strikes. When Iraq invaded Kuwait in August 1990, the F-117 finally got its chance to prove that all those years of secrecy had been worth it. At 2:51 a.m. on January 17, 1991, the first F-117 dropped the first bomb of Desert Storm on an air defense center in Baghdad. No announcement, no press release. One moment the building was there, the next it wasn't. What followed was perhaps the most one-sided aerial campaign in military history. During the first 24 hours, F-117s methodically dismantled Iraq's entire military nervous system. Command bunkers, communication centers, air defense sites, chemical weapons facilities. Everything that took years to build was destroyed in seconds by aircraft that showed up on radar about as clearly as a gentle breeze. The psychological effect was immediate and devastating. Iraqi air defense operators found themselves shooting at nothing, while their most critical facilities exploded around them. Surface-to-air missile sites fired blindly into empty sky, guided by nothing more than hope and rapidly diminishing supplies. Iraq fired over 700 surface-to-air missiles during Desert Storm, but not one hit a Nighthawk. Throughout the entire war, not a single F-117 was shot down, despite flying 1,271 combat sorties over the most heavily defended targets in Iraq. The aircraft had achieved something unprecedented. They had effectively ended Iraqi air resistance before most conventional forces had even engaged. By the early 2000s, the F-117 was showing its age. The computers that made it flyable were now older than some pilots flying it. By retirement, there were smartphones with more processing power than the entire flight control system that kept this $45 million aircraft airborne. Each aircraft required extensive maintenance to preserve its stealth characteristics. The radar-absorbing coating cost more per square foot than most people's monthly rent, and each F-117 needed about 5,000 square feet of the stuff. It was like owning a very expensive, very high-maintenance sports car that could only be driven at night and had to be invisible to radar. On April 22, 2008, the last F-117 flew its final mission. The aircraft that had revolutionized warfare was quietly retired to the same Nevada desert where it had been born. Most of the fleet went to Tonopah Test Range, where they sit in climate-controlled storage in such perfect condition that they could theoretically be returned to service. However, retired apparently doesn't mean what we thought it meant. Since 2008, F-117s have been regularly spotted flying test missions, and the Air Force has quietly acknowledged they're using them for research, development, and training. The Air Force even issued contracts to keep them flying through 2034. So much for permanent retirement. The Nighthawks have found new life as Red Air aggressors, playing the bad guys in training exercises. They serve as substitutes for stealth cruise missiles and low-visibility aircraft, teaching pilots how to engage threats they can barely see. The Air Force even certified them for aerial refueling with the new KC-46 tanker in 2024. You don't upgrade fuel systems for museum pieces. Despite rumors and clickbait headlines, the F-117s aren't being upgraded for modern combat. They're serving as specialized training tools and test platforms. The remaining fleet is being used for research and development, testing and evaluation and training, including acting as red air aggressors and substitutes for stealth cruise missiles in large-scale exercises. It turns out that even obsolete stealth technology is still valuable for training pilots to fight against low observable threats. When your enemy has stealth fighters and cruise missiles, you need something to practice against. And the F-117, despite being decades old, still provides a radar signature small enough to challenge modern air defense systems. In Desert Storm, 36 F-117s achieved what thousands of conventional aircraft might have struggled to accomplish: the complete neutralization of an enemy's ability to defend itself. They didn't just win air superiority, they made the concept of traditional air defense seem quaint and outdated. The Nighthawk proved that in modern warfare, being invisible isn't just an advantage, it's a war winner. Every stealth aircraft that followed, from the B-2 Spirit to the F-35 Lightning II, owes its existence to the lessons learned from this angular nightmare that looked like a UFO and fought like a ghost. 16 years after retirement, the F-117 is still teaching lessons, just different ones. Instead of striking enemy targets, it's helping train the next generation of pilots to detect and engage stealth threats. The aircraft that revolutionized offensive stealth warfare is now helping perfect defensive counter-stealth tactics. In the end, maybe those Nevada witnesses weren't entirely wrong. The F-117 was alien. Alien to everything we thought we knew about how aircraft should look, how wars should be fought, and how completely a technological advantage could determine the outcome of a conflict. And apparently, it's still alien enough to be worth keeping around. This is Steel Mallard. Subscribe to stay air dominant.